So today I'm going to go over my negative for rebuttal in regards to James' arguments. And first, I'd like to cover the fact in regards to helium-3. James discussed that helium-3 is able to fuel the Earth for up to 10,000 years. But what does this have to do with the lunar surface if we aren't even going to bring it home? He mentioned in his affirmative rebuttal that we would have both agreed it will not be coming back to Earth. But how is this solving the problem he proposed in his affirmative constructive? Has the basis of his argument completely changed? Are we now focusing on the fact that harvesting the moon for helium-3 will not solve any of our current energy problems, which is why we have this plan in motion in the first place? I'd also like to point out that my opponent really made the time to drive it home at the end of his first affirmative speech that developing a moon will help the Earth tremendously for years to come when it comes to resource management, and has completely abandoned that argument. Everything that is now done on the moon will be for the moon, meaning we aren't solving any current issues back here on Earth, just creating another situation that we have to monitor and send resources to. James was also able to clear up the fact that the US is not looking to be the first to completely colonize the moon, that simply we are going to be laying down the foundation for the rest of the world and putting ourselves in first place. We can both agree that the US should focus on developing the moon, but only to the degree that is fiscally responsible for our country. So the benefit for the United States would simply be that we are laying the foundation and hopefully enticing the rest of the world to gain interest in also moving and developing resources to the moon, and hopefully taking charge and colonizing the moon for whatever purpose they deem necessary. While we can definitely save the US money by not being the one to lay down the complete foundation for lunar development, we are also leaving room for the rest of the world to decide which direction they want to take this. We could be assisting other countries with an initiative that we have no interest in, and may lack the ability to maintain our dominance and control over the moon, if we are the first to develop and establish structures there. On the flip side of this argument, we have to face that there are very potential consequences that would be included with being the first there. It doesn't necessarily mean we have any advantage over any other country for being established first, nor does it mean we have any control over the moon in the long run. Since lunar development has the eyes of many potential countries, it is likely that establishing any moon base or colonies will be operated and run by the United Nations. So really we can look at this as a wild, wild west scenario and just assume we are the first ones there, that we officially are the only ones that control what happened on the moon. Next, I'd like to discuss NASA's relationship with SpaceX. Since NASA currently has a positive relationship with SpaceX because of their work on creating a reusable rocket for travel to and from the International Space Station, why would we not continue to further that relationship? Right now, NASA's relationship with SpaceX is extremely beneficial. So if we are going to suppose that the affirmative argument is the path that we should take, then why would we present the fact that we should no longer continue the relationship? We should do everything in our power to save as much money as possible if the United States is going to lead the forefront in lunar development and exploration. It doesn't make sense to explain how SpaceX is saving NASA so much funds if we do not plan on continuing this relationship to get even further. It is completely useless at this point, and James shouldn't have even brought SpaceX into play in his original argument. The first affirmative also said we should consider all of the successes that have occurred on the International Space Station and how these successes can be replicated in the lunar environment. I first would like to point out that one has nothing to do with the other. While it is great we have made large advantages in the International Space Station and have successfully left someone up there for a year, that doesn't mean anything in regards to the lunar excursion. The traveling distance between the International Space Station and the Earth is significantly shorter, and so many things can go wrong traveling the remaining distance from Earth to the moon alone. Now, once we get there, we will be establishing a work environment from the lunar ground up. Sans was already provided on the rocket and shuttled the astronauts up there in the first place. Sending all the required resources to the moon from the Earth successfully will be extremely difficult, and there are many hazards along the way. Additionally, the International Space Station is set up to do completely different jobs than a lunar base or mission would, again proving that these two are not uncommon enough to compare. Simply stating the success we have at the International Space Station does not guarantee anything will comes to lunar exploration and development. From there, we can discuss our successes with Scott Kelly. While we can celebrate the success of his return to Earth early this year, scientists have already stated it is going to take up to 6 years to determine Kelly's full results from his year spent in space. Clearly, waiting an additional 6 years to get started on preparing a launch to the moon seems like a massive waste of time. However, if we rush to push towards a moon launch, we miss out on some extremely important information that could have been useful when developing and determining how to lead missions to the moon. We should also take in consideration that the massive successes we have had at the International Space Station is quite obvious, and in the title for the organization, it is international and a massive collaboration. This is extremely beneficial to have in regards to the scientific community, in regards especially to lunar exploration. Now I'd like to switch the focus to cost. While opponent does bring up a good point that the Department of Defense spends an astronomical amount for military purposes, we simply cannot compare the budget of national defense to lunar exploration. While it seems easy to argue that the amount of money spent for the Department of Defense can be dropped to a fair amount, we do have to consider that just because we can lower the spending doesn't mean we necessarily need to spend the money elsewhere. Thank you.